feels like fall for a change.
Wherever you are, who's gonna tell Jesus? Who's gonna tell? Who's gonna
WTWG 1050 AM and 96.9 FM Columbus, a CBN communication station covering the Golden Triangle and surrounding areas. WTWG AM 1050 and 96.9 FM, your 24-hour worldwide station at www.wtwgam1050.com.
On this talk show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of ownership and management of CBN Communications and
WTWG 1050 AM and 96.9 FM Columbus, a CBN communication station covering the Golden Triangle and surrounding areas.
It's gonna be alright. It's coming back. But you know, I wonder. Sometimes I thank God can get us for not speaking out. You know. All right, we're going to get ready to go on. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. So good to be back with you on such a lovely day as today. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Happy after Thanksgiving Day. After Thanksgiving weekend. We hope that you had a great Thanksgiving and a Thanksgiving weekend, but we're back by the grace of God and got my favorite counselor here today, Miss Kenya Walker. She's going to share some very important things with us, but before she comes, I do want to share a nugget with you coming from Breadcrumbs, and it is entitled, Bear Ye One Another's Burden, and so fulfill the law of Christ, Galatians 6:2. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. So good morning to you, radio listeners. All right, good morning to you, my favorite counselor.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing well. How was your Thanksgiving weekend?
It was good. It was really, really good. We went to visit my sister-in-law and her family over in Atlanta. So we were there from Wednesday to Saturday visiting with her.
Okay.
And her family.
So did you all do anything new and exciting there in Atlanta?
No, everybody was just wanting to rest. You know, we just ate and rested. We went out to eat once. Did a little shopping, but other than that, we didn't do a whole lot.
And it's good just to be with family, that you don't have to do a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just being with them, it's so fulfilling. Mm-hmm. My husband and I, we went with our daughters up in Horn Lake in the South Haven area.
Yes, ma'am.
And we went to church with them on Sunday. So it was just a good, relaxing trip.
Excellent. Did you get plenty of rest?
I did. I pretty much got some good rest.
Good.
When the little grandbaby didn't come in there and wake me up.
How old is she now?
She is 3. She'll be 4 in January. Grandma.
She was so glad to see her grandma.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We got some things we're going to talk about today. I think that needs to be talked about. I'm watching a Christmas movie this week. And he was telling this young lady that he was going to leave her because she was OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. We could say dysfunction. And he said, you're like that because you don't like to feel. You just want to stay busy to stop dealing with reality. Break down that word by word, obsessive and compulsive, and then disorder. Can you break that down word by word?
Yes, ma'am. OCD stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. And what obsessive compulsive disorder is a form of an anxiety disorder where a person experiences compulsive thoughts. They're compulsive ruminating thoughts that occur over and over again that causes the person to be anxious. So to arrest those thoughts or stop those thoughts, they often engage in a compulsion to stop it. And the compulsion is usually a behavior or some type of ritual to interrupt those ruminating compulsive thoughts.
So you're saying it's kind of an escape mechanism.
Yes, ma'am.
He was telling her that she didn't want to feel. She didn't really want to get involved with life. That's why she did what she did. She was a lawyer, and she was even helping a criminal get off, I guess, just to make the money.
Okay. Now, you said he accused her of having OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder.
He told us that you OCD.
Actually, it sounds like she's a workaholic. I'm not sure if he used the right terminology, but it sounds like to me she is a workaholic where she wants to escape reality. She doesn't want to experience the negative emotions that she's experiencing, so she distracts herself by pouring herself into her work.
Explain the difference between the two of what you're just saying.
Okay. Now, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is an anxiety disorder, but when you are a workaholic, you self-medicate with your work, just like an alcoholic would, someone that self-medicates with alcohol so that they don't have to deal with negative thoughts and negative feelings. It's the same thing. Workaholic is an addiction as well. Instead of the person using alcohol or drugs or sex to get away from reality or to disrupt the compulsive negative thoughts they're having, they're pouring themselves into their work.
So something is actually going on in the mind.
Yes, ma'am.
They're trying to escape like reality, seems like.
Yes, ma'am. They're usually, when a person pours themselves into their work, there's usually some unresolved trauma or some negative situations and circumstances that have not been resolved. And that's what the brain will often do. When there is something that has not been resolved within your soul, the brain will continue to try to analyze it and fix it internally. And, instead of having the person to go and deal with it outright.
There was a movie one time about this lady had all these different personalities. She would change to this and she would change to that. Would you say she was trying to deal with some of those, I guess, issues that she was dealing with?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You said she had different personalities.
She had like 3 personalities.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Back in the olden days, we called it multiple personality disorder, but the diagnostic manual has corrected it, and the new term is dissociative identity disorder, because it's a form of dissociation that a person goes through in order to keep from dealing with negative thoughts and negative feelings. And a person can often have multiple personalities. I once watched a movie where this young man had 26 different personalities.
Wow.
And some of the personalities can be aware of each other, and then some of them are not.
Mm-hmm. It was like she was not aware that she was this person at this particular time, and then she changed back to another personality. Now, what's the difference between that and being bipolar?
Now, bipolar disorder is a mood disorder where a person has two poles. That's why it's called bipolar. By meaning two poles, where a person has periods of depression and then they have periods of mania. And the depression is clinical depression, where they don't sleep, they don't eat, they're having a negative, sad mood nearly every day for about 6 weeks on up, even to months. And then the person goes through mania, where they may be super irritable, easily angered. They may have phases where they experience grandiosity. They think they're 10 feet tall and invincible, and they have cycles. Now, you may only see depression for 1 or 2 years, and then they might go through a manic cycle for months on end. And you have different types of bipolar. You have bipolar 1, 2, and 3. It depends on what phase is diagnosed by what phase seems to be dominant.
Right. And some of them look like they can be very happy that they can deceive you. In the next half of the day, they drop down into depression. And you wonder, they were so happy this moment, now they have dropped down like they have no hope.
Yes, ma'am. And it's because of a biomedical issue in their brain. The neurotransmitters in their brain are not calibrated correctly. Neurotransmitters are the chemical messengers in your brain, where a person might release too much of a chemical versus not releasing at all. And so to correct that, they have to be medicated, because the medication creates a bridge from one neuron to the other, where that chemical can leave one neuron and transfer to the other one at the same amount. And then it completely recalibrates the brain and corrects the imbalance.
Okay. My son was telling me about a young man, 41 years old, that was working with him, committed suicide. And he said the last 2 weeks of his life that he seemed so happy that I guess they just didn't detect that he was suicidal.
I believe that. I've seen that quite often, because there are certain medications, especially your classic tricyclic antidepressants, such as Celexa, Lexapro, fluvoxamine, Zoloft, and Prozac. The other 4 are actually generic brands of Prozac. And what happens is it can increase suicidal ideation, because when a person is just deep down in depression, they don't have the energy to plan how to commit suicide. So once that tricyclic antidepressant gets into their system, then they have the energy to plan the suicide, because they figure, okay, they're going to get back into that sad, down and out mood again. So they're deciding, okay, I'm going to take my life before that happens again. And so that's usually the thought process in that, which is why I tell individuals, if you are been placed on a tricyclic antidepressant, please let your healthcare provider know when you're having suicidal ideations, so they can discontinue that medication and then prescribe you an SSRI, which is a specific serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Wow, you said a mouthful. But that's why it's good to pay attention, especially to our loved ones. He was only 41 years old, had 2 children, married, and shot himself in the head. But for parents and even relatives, pay attention to each other.
Yes, check on each other, call each other on the phone, FaceTime, and let people know that when they're not feeling their best, that you are there to listen, and then you actually need to be there to listen to them. Because having that conversation, if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, can be enough to deter them or distract them from their suicidal thoughts.
I heard a preacher say it one time. He wasn't a preacher at that particular time. He said, if I don't get any positive feedback from the next person that I see, that I'm going to kill myself. It happened that he met a person that spoke some positivity in his life. Man, I see a lot of potential in you. I see a lot of purpose in you. You're gifted. And he began to speak that into his life, and that man changed his mind about taking his life.
Just because someone spoke life into him.
And that's what we need to do, to speak life.
Yes.
It not, death.
Right.
Speak life into one another. You never know when a person is on the edge.
Exactly. And most of the time, most truly suicidal interventions will not, won't let you know it. Meaning that it won't manifest in their facial expression, their body language, or even their immediate behavior. It's not going to manifest because, see, if they really want to take their lives, they're not going to let anyone know it so that they can't stop it. Which is why we need to talk to people, communicate, practice reflective listening, meaning that give that person that listening ear. Let them know you understand them. And even if you cannot help them, let them know you will help them to find help.
My granddaughter said something to me the other week before last. She said that she liked for people to try to teach her and lead her in the right way rather than coming on and trying to demand her to do certain things. What you think about that? I think it's a mixture of both.
Okay. How old is she?
She is like 21.
Okay. All right. Being 21 years old, I can understand why she would think like that, because being 21 years old, you don't want people to demand that you do anything because she sees herself as an adult. But at 21, I can't speak to a 21-year-old the way I would a 10-year-old.
Right.
Where I say, go do this, or you better go and do this. I have to change it and say, well, dear, don't you think it's best to do this?
Yeah.
Or what do you think about this? Allow her to make up her mind, because she wants that independence. And she wants to know that she has her own identity and that she can make up her mind. So I can understand it.
Right, because someone will shut us out when they think that we are too demanding or come on too strong, especially if they're not ready to receive what we have to say. Yes. And so I understand kind of what she's saying, more in a nurturing way to try to help you make up your mind.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah. Because she wants to be able to, in the end, she wants to say, I made some changes because I wanted to, not because somebody else told me to.
And someone said that that's the aspect of a good counselor. They don't tell you what to do, but they lead you to make up your own mind. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. We don't give advice, and we don't dictate the events of people's lives, but we show them different angles of their circumstance, and then we give them the tools that they need to make those changes. Because in the end, you still want that person to be an independent person who has their own identity.
Right. So that the person would not try to be God in their life, cause that person to be too dependent upon them. Sometimes people can almost make others a God by depending on them too much.
That's right.
And sometimes parents got to wean their children that they can be more responsible to stand on their own.
Yes.
Give them the right tools and the right teaching. Now you got to make it. They said about the eagle, when those eaglets get a certain age, the mom will drop them out the nest so that they can fly on their own. And when they are released from the nest, then she'll put thorns in the nest that they cannot come back and be comfortable like they were, that they have grown to another point. They have grown to a point now that they got to be able to make it and take responsibility for themselves.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Isn't that something? She's teaching them to grow up. She's teaching them to grow up.
I've been a musician for 10 years, but
And that's a responsibility of every parent to
That's
teach
right.
them to be self-sufficient.
That's
To
right.
my daughter was picking up the 3-year-old on her hip, and she's got too big
Mm-hmm.
to be picking up and carrying on her hip. I said, you crippling her. You gotta let her walk on her own, because she is heavy.
Mm-hmm.
She'll be 4 in January.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that too, because Jack is always on my hip. When I have him with me, I have him with me a lot, and he is always on my hip. He wants his TT to pick him up,
But she wants her to carry her.
I know.
And she's kind of big for her age.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked up. I said, "Wow, you got to carry her. She's heavy."
And Jack is heavy. He's a solid 40 pounds.
So at a certain point now, you have to release him. You got to walk now. It's time for you to walk on your own.
I know it. He just turned 3 in September.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. I know it, but isn't that something? Isn't that a great concept? The eagle is teaching the eaglets to fly.
Fly now.
To be self-sufficient, and she knows to go and put thorns in the nest.
Yes.
So they can't be comfortable, and then they have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in essence, that's what we're supposed to be doing as parents, because if we don't do that, they'll be living with us when they're 40
Mm-hmm.
and 50.
Yeah.
Not being able to take care of themselves.
Right. And we mentioned this in the last time we were on together about when a child, if you got several children, and sometimes when the parents are going through at a certain time in that child's age, one of those children might miss something because they didn't get the proper teaching or the proper nurturing at that particular point in their life. And sometimes it'll show up as a deficiency.
Yes.
When they are grown up, because they didn't get what they needed at that growth spurt. You know, when you have those growth spurts, you need something, whatever you need it at that particular time.
Exactly. And when you say that, that reminds me of Erickson's stages of development, which we learned in developmental psychology. You have spiritual development, social development, physical development, you have different intellectual development. And if those things aren't nurtured, cultivated and nurtured, it shows up in adulthood. And then the person has to go through all these changes in order to correct that and be better.
Right. And sometimes when you get at a certain age, sometimes you don't hardly want to change. It's harder to change as you age.
Yes, it is. It is.
The Lord have to intervene. Of course, He can cause us to change, but you got to want it.
You got to want it.
But it's better if it could have been inputted. That's why the Bible says, train up your children, train up a child when he's young, and when he's old, he will not depart from it.
That's right.
They're supposed to get it at an early age.
At an early age. And, I think the Lord is going to hold us responsible for not doing what we're supposed to do as parents. Even anybody who's in a parental who's a parental figure in that child's life, even aunties and uncles, He's gonna hold us accountable for what we don't teach, because what we don't teach causes too much distress for the child. And then sometimes we may not have gotten what we needed in order to teach that what's needed to the child, because the truth is we parent similarly to the way we were parented. And, we do what we do, monkey see, monkey do. And so we have to, once we figure out what that deficiency is as adults, we have to go and correct it.
Right. And that's why we need the Bible. A lot of teaching I didn't realize I had missed until I started learning the Word of God. I said, I wish I could have did this different. The Bible will straighten up a lot lot of things.
Yes, it will.
Make them steps that are crooked. Start making them straight.
Yes, ma'am. It will. I'm a living testimony. It will straighten out some stuff.
Definitely. If we stay there and stay with the Lord, He'll manifest and give us what we didn't get. But sometimes we grown older and we wish we had known this
Mhm.
when we was younger. You know, that's why when we are younger, we shouldn't be so puffed up that can't nobody tell me nothing. You
That's
know,
right.
some things I wish somebody had to hit me upside the head.
Mhm.
You need to get this.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we got our own mind, our own way made up that
Mhm.
this is what I want to do,
Mhm.
whether it's right or wrong.
Whether it's right or wrong.
Mhm.
Yep. If it's not productive or it's not helping you get to the next level in life, then it's wrong.
Mhm.
You know, if
Yeah.
it's causing you to be stuck or stagnant in certain phases of life or certain areas of your life, we need to do what we need to do to change it and be better.
Yes. Yes. Because in the long run, it's going to come back to really bless us.
Yes.
Yes, it is not designed to hurt us.
That's right.
But my husband and I was in the Bahamas, probably what it was last month, the last of October. And our tour guide said this, just kind of made me think. He said, here in the Bahamas, the women go to church and the men go to the whiskey house. And you know, I look around at our society. Some of our men are not in church that they can go back and teach their families. Sometimes we're like, and I'm not picking on the men, y'all. Don't boo me down now. It's because a lot of women not in church either.
That's right.
You got some women not in church. But as a man, as a leader, how beautiful it is to get the word of God that you can come back and help your children. A lot of our men are missing when it comes to church.
Yes, it is.
On a percentage of 0 to 100, what's the percentage of women in church and men in church?
Now, this is just my opinion about the percentages. Just looking at it, observing it over the years, I think is the ratio is like 70-30. 70% women, 30% men. That's just what I've seen over the course of my 47 years.
And we see we're losing a lot of our young black males. It's like it's sad. Almost every weekend we're hearing somebody getting shot down. It's sad. It really is sad. And I know it breaks the heart of God. We need men to be in place, take authority over the enemy, to help their children. Don't be out there in the street with them. Go to church so you can learn, so you can go back and help your young men.
That's right. We've got to continue to get to the bottom of why this continues to happen in our community. Especially in our African American community, and also right here in Columbus, Mississippi. We keep having these incidences week after week after week. It's a new report on WCBI and WTVA every other day. We can look for it once or twice a week now. Why is this happening? How does a 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-old, how are they getting access to firearms? Because they can't register for it. They cannot purchase it because they're not at the age limit. How are they getting these weapons? And where is all of the anger coming from to where you feel like you got to pull a gun and shoot down your fellow brother? And some young women have been involved in these shooting incidents.
True.
Where is this coming from? Why is this happening? But every time I ask that question, that thought comes back in my mind. It's from the history. We talked about this a couple of months ago, where anytime you keep having violence reoccurring over and over in a certain geographical area, the answer lies in the history. Lowndes County has been a notoriously murderous county for at least 100 years. And you can go down to downtown Jackson, Mississippi, to the African American Museum, and it will prove what I am saying. It has been a murderous town since the beginning of time. It goes back to the era of slavery, far before the Civil War, where people in our community were murdered by our counterparts, Caucasian counterparts. But see, that anytime you have a lot of violence, a demon is gonna rest there. Because remember, when you commit sin and you keep doing it over and over, it invites demonic spirits, and they start to reside there and make that place their abode. But over time, the enemy's tactics changed. The beginning tactic was to annihilate us completely when our white counterparts were doing it here in Lowndes County. But over time, our own African American people began murdering each other. The plan was to annihilate us from the beginning. His tactic on how to do it has changed. Now he's using us to do it to each other.
My God, we need to wake up. We need to wake up. We're losing too many of our young African American. I said, Lord, where is all of this coming from? It's a curse, like it's a curse.
It's a curse.
You know, because not only when that happens, you got 2 or 3 families that are hurt. The person that was killed is hurt, and now the other family, their child or whomever will be going to jail for
the rest of their life.
Yes. So we got to try to get to the bottom of this, you know?
Why is this happening? Where is this coming from, where we have so much anger in our community that they want to kill one another? So when we look at it, where are the men in our community? Where are the fathers? Who's standing up to say, hey, enough is enough? We need leaders who can step in and be a father to young men who are fatherless.
Men that praying for your children, doing things with your children. Of course, we need the women too, but like we say, the majority of the church house are women. We need some good, strong male figures to stand up and stand for the Lord, be godly men to help with our children.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. We need help in our community because there's a lot of young people that are lost. When you're coming from a family where you may be experiencing a lot of domestic violence and abuse, poverty, low level of education, and you're denied access to resources that can help you better your life, this is the result of it. Because you're already pretty much oppressed by society and its standards. And then what happens is that infiltrates your personal and your family life. So a lot of times the people that are the closest to you, you take these issues out on. Now you have a breeding ground for domestic violence, and domestic violence just does not stop at home beyond closed doors. Now it goes out into the community. It bleeds out into the community and starts to spread about. And then you end up having one killing after another one, over and over and over.
That's why it is so important that we have the Lord in our life. He will be the catalyst or the turning point for a better life. And we need people to share the good news, to go out. You know, sometimes I was listening to something with YouTube yesterday. My friend sent it to me. Let me grab this call. Good morning, caller.
Good morning to both of you and your listeners and your kids. You know, look at 87 plus. Just want to put out some ideas, some observations. I don't have a panacea. I don't know how to solve the problem. But I do know one thing about the African American community is so divided in the first place. We are more divided than anybody else.
Yes, sir.
in any other group. And part of that is brought on by slavery. And some people say, well, you can't put it all on slavery, but slavery put us where we are. In other words, we got to remember this, Mr. Hendricks. I know some of my members could take to hear this. We had to learn to speak another language. Mm-hmm. And all of that was bearing on how our community progressed. We were brought here as a people to save European immigrants. Mm-hmm. But we weren't brought here to be progressive. We weren't brought here to be educated and have a good community. We weren't brought here. But what happened was, once they had to relieve from slavery, they put the drugs and the alcohol in our community. Who you think put the guns? How many guns do you know any black people who make guns?
No, sir, not at all.
They made resale, bro. And that's what they did. The President Ronald Reagan, during his time, a racist, bigoted president, he went South America and got drugs and gave them guns and brought the drugs to Los Angeles, California place.
But I want to interject this though. When are we going to get to the place of self-sufficiency? And
we're doing better. We're doing better than we should be doing. In other words, all other people would have been extinct. If it weren't that Africans, no other people. Look what happened to the so-called Indians. Look where they are. Mm-hmm. They were here when the Europeans got here. Mm-hmm. That's their own language. They were occupying the land. If the African Americans, those of us who made it, are a miracle. Look, have you ever known? You got your policemen, your Caucasian or your white policemen. They shoot down the young boys like they're animals. How many times? Tell me now. I want y'all to tell me how many Caucasians have you heard that policemen kill? The ones who do badly, they have to kill themselves. In other words, the guys just killed so many people down there, had every cop in the state, on that state, and not one of them shot him. They said they found him dead, and I believe they took him and hid him someplace, and he's not even dead. But that's African American men, we could have been far if they had not put drugs in our neighborhood, put guns in our neighborhood. Go and look at your African American men who didn't use too much alcohol and too many drugs. They still have to escape the European or so-called white man. Not all white people are bad. I don't want anybody to say it.
That's right.
The law was not made for us. It was not made for us. Don't you hear? You got to get civil rights movement. All of this. No white folks have to get no civil rights movement. And they kill when we get a leader out there like Mecca Evans. If you get a leader out there who really gonna help black people, sooner or later they're gonna put him in the grave. That's why they say you gotta teach one, each one teach one, because every leader we get going to help African American, a large group of them, they're gonna put him in the grave. They're gonna find a way to kill him. That guy and look, let me just make this observation. Old myth. One African American who had been in service. Now there was 5,000 to 6,000 Caucasian children there in Old Miss, the government taking care of them. And they didn't want one black male, I forget his name, that was, you give me his name, that was trying to go to school at Old Miss some years ago. And they were going to murder him. See, look, Mr. Hendricks and the ladies who are listening out there, I'm an 87-year-old black man. I've never been drunk. I've never been drugged. And I kept my 3 boys out of these jails. That's what, but see, our men have such a hard time. The women fuss them and the persistent oppression. So I'm saying that the black men who made it, you are heroes just by being alive and not in these jailhouses.
Okay, let's examine this, Mr. Robert.
Yes, ma'am. Let's examine it, please.
Let's examine this. Are we? Let me interject this. Are we still blaming others for where we are now?
I'm blaming them, but yes, ma'am, we blame the law. If you relate to Hendricks, if your children go to school, to the public schools, maybe your children could because they're younger than I. You couldn't. They put us in the schools. The schools, they didn't even want to give us books. They gave us the books that They gave me fifth grade books when this other fifth grade was getting new books. I mean, listen, y'all got to, I know we could do better because we saved them. We saved the Europeans because they came here and the government gave them land and gave them a person enslaved.
My thought is, I'm not saying that who should take the responsibility, but my thought is, when we really get in the Lord like we should, isn't he an equalizer?
Yes.
They taught us wrong in the Lord. You know, these same so-called Christians, white Christians, brought slavery to this part of the world. They brought slavery. How could they teach us when they kill us? Now, there are some good ones, don't get me wrong, all of them don't do it. But look, remember I told y'all some time ago, in states like Alabama and Mississippi, the white people going to vote for the white man who's going to do the most harm or allow the least upward mobility of black people. Look at your governor, which you elected there the other day. Most of the blacks voted for the other white man. He wasn't as dangerous, probably, as the governor you have. Then I said, you heard me say that. Now, when we get older men like us, we got to tell the truth. And the truth is, and not only that, our black women are so hard to get on their black men if it's not their children pretty quickly. But when the white man does, oh, you know, he was bad, he was that. And we're the only men. Our women, I give y'all credit. Y'all saved us. You were the only women. White women don't have to save white men. Well, y'all saved us. I'm not talking about individual you or individual to me, but as a whole, African American women had to save their boys. Some of them had to go to bed with the white man in order to save their children. You know, white women didn't have to do that.
Okay, Miss Robert, let's pause that thought. Do you think our millennials think like that? What is their mindset on where we are right now?
Well, I don't know where we are. We don't know where we are because, listen, we don't own nothing.
Hold on, Miss Rob. I'm going to let my counselor friend address that question.
Their mindset, the millennials' mindset, I believe, just from having sit-down conversations with them and, you know, and from my observance, they don't understand the struggle and the depths of it. They read about it, they hear about it, but they don't completely understand what our people have gone through in this country. But I want to say this. Yes, being enslaved for 200 and some odd years has caused a lot of problems for our people that still resonates with us today. But we got to tell the truth about the history. This is the curse that has been operating in our lives as an African American people and a community for centuries, long before the transatlantic slave trade. Because when you go back thousands of years and you analyze and you study the African tribes and the cultures, they had division and fighting amongst each other then. Mm-hmm. And now here we are in 2023, and those same tribes that we have descended from are still fighting each other right now. And so we've got to look at how much of this is the curse operating in our lives versus how much of it is the consequences of enslavement for 200 and something odd years. Oh, that is Miss Kenya, but some of that too is the rejection.
Who's your consultant, Miss Kenya?
Yes, this is Miss Walker, Miss Kenya Walker. But hold on, Mr. Robert.
Kenya, yeah, okay, Kenya. And let me just make this observation. Mm-hmm. I remember the Hendricks, you know, I took it out. The University of Alabama was established in 1831. Do you know it was 1963 for one African American person graduated from a public school? What listen? Europeans have been graduating from that school as established in 1831 since 1835 for years.
I understand that, Mr. Robert. I do. I know the history and I understand it. But as an African American people, we have got to take some responsibility to make the changes that we need in order for our community to advance, in order for African Americans to advance.
I agree with you, but there's so much out there. There's so much pressure, and some of us are doing well. Now, some of us are doing well in spite of all this. I don't call it racism. I call it bigotry and hate and inferiority. Inferior people with credentials in places. You got a lot of Europeans who have degrees from these colleges, but they're still inferior. And they didn't have to do what we have to do. In other words, I had to have my culture into a Caucasian college and learn what they learned. They only had to learn what they wanted to learn. So if you look at the black men who are thriving and doing well, your ministers, your teachers, your preachers, and things, you ought to go up and if he's 35 years old and living in Alabama, United States, or anywhere, you ought to say, hey, you have made it. Keep going. Keep helping others. And if you get the drugs out of our community and the guns, they'll bring death. Your African Americans don't have no boats to go nowhere to get into drugs. And if they had no guns, that's why they're making guns. The FBI, the CIA, and all of this bombing.
Okay, let's look at that. Okay. Now, if the guns are here, then do we have to succumb to every evil that passes us by?
No, ma'am, you do not. But if you're going to remove the guns and the drugs, you must have something positive to replace them with.
Right.
Because if you don't, they're going to resort back to what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of this is the absence of God. Y'all might not like me to say that,
but it's true.
But it's true. A lot of this is the absence of God. We've gone in our own ways. We did our own thing, took vengeance in our own hand. When the Lord said, vengeance is mine,
I will repay.
I will repay. So a lot of that, it's a lot of time rejection of God that caused some of our people to go into slavery.
Yes, rebellion.
If the same people gave us the books talking about God, they also gave the guns and the drugs. Think about that. Think about that. Where did we take it? What books did they, they'll go through the community.
Mr. Robert, we don't have to take everything somebody gives us.
I remember you and I and your consultant that didn't. But so many other people are weaker than we are. So many other people are weaker. You and I, we wouldn't be talking about it if we had done that. We wouldn't be here. But there are many African Americans don't do it, but so many of them fail and fall that the community becomes weak.
Well, let me say this. Sometimes we don't take responsibility a lot of times because we're blaming somebody else. I can't get up because they did this to me.
I agree.
I agree.
Hold on, Mr. Rob. Let me let my consultant talk.
I totally agree. We know how it started. We know how this has progressed since the beginning, but it doesn't do us any good to keep laying blame. Now it's time for a solution. What do we do? How do we remove the guns and the drugs? How do we provide mentoring programs and partnerships to help young African American men and women know that, hey, we have resources. There's a better way to live, and teach them how to advance so that we can continue to come up as an African American community. Yes, we know how this stuff started, but we can't keep taking blame. We got to take some responsibility for our own selves. What services are out there for us to get into a better frame of mind? And unless we change as a people, unless we change how we think, we're not going to be able to change our behavior. You have to change what you think in order to do better.
Right. It's a matter of perception. A lot of times we talk about the problem over and over again, but how many times do we offer solutions?
Right. We can't keep talking about the same thing over and over and not offer a solution.
And sometimes African Americans blame themselves. We like to say, well, you can't talk about history. But if you go to
Miss Rob.
Okay.
We don't talk. We understand history, but they say if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's a form of insanity.
Yes.
You're gonna get the same
results.
You're gonna get the same result.
Those are cliches, and we often repeat them too much. Not you.
But they're true. They're true. You can't keep. Yes, we know where the blame lies, but it's time for a solution. Truth be told, our Caucasian counterparts have not been able to completely control us in about 75 to 100 years. So in 2023, now what's your excuse?
That's true. But what's the excuse now? We got freedom, we got rights, we got ability to work,
education,
education. We have access to that. So what's our excuse now?
Those who participated in doing well in spite of. We doing well. Kenya is doing well in spite of. But everybody's not as strong as some of us may be.
Okay, well, how do we strengthen the community so we can start repeating all of this stuff, this what I call foolishness that keeps occurring within our community? It's no reason we should turn on the news every evening and another African American young male or woman has been murdered by their peers. How do we? What's the solution in that? Because the police and law enforcement can't do it all.
Our men and women stop drinking that alcohol and start drinking the orange juice, stop using that drug. If we were to be sober for 1 month, if African Americans would stop using socializing drugs and for 1 month, I told the people in the county over here, if you stop for 1 month and you're not made progress and doing better and thinking, I'll give you my little check, my little welfare check I get for Social Security.
Okay, this is what I feel. I feel as Christians in the African American community, we aren't doing what we're supposed to do. We are not out in the community, out in the streets, trying to really help people. We go to church, we get to work, we go to them 4 walls we go to every Sunday, we get to work, then we go home. It's like we're not concerned enough about each other. Real ministry is in the community. Real ministry is helping people come out of the situation that we're in. How do we organize that? How do we get started and get everyone, every Christian in our community to begin to do that in an organized and safe way?
In our community are Christians. If you don't believe it, look how much they meet one another going from one church to another one. If they were to come all to one church and then do it, but if that's how divided you're more divided on Sunday, African American Christians are more divided on Sunday than they are with the Caucasian people.
Well, let's look at it like this. It might not be the whole church. If each one would reach one.
Right. If each one reaches one.
Gotta start at home, though. Gotta start at home.
It start at home, being spread abroad. Don't just keep it behind the 4 walls of your home. Go out there where the need is.
If all our people thought like you two, you would be giving, you'll be teaching rather than having them in jail. But they don't think that way. Everybody doesn't think the same. I wish we could solve our problem, and we got many. But here's the thing about African Americans in this country. Not only do we have our own problem like all other cultures, but we have a problem with this system. Let me tell you something about the laws in Alabama, in the United States, and Mississippi. The laws, they like a rubber band. They stretch for the Caucasian or white people. They tie up for the brown. They retract for the brown people, and they tie in a knot for the African Americans. Because the people of this country, most of them, listen to what I'm saying now. Most of the Europeans in this country do not want to see African Americans be successful, because if they do, then that's going to be a knock on them. You went and got these people, you enslaved, you took their religion, their religion, their culture, and their place of origin, and they're doing as well as you.
Well, one thing about this, Mr. Rob, you cannot take your belief. You cannot take your belief system. If you really believe in something, nobody can take that. And that's the problem right there. We left God out of the equation, because the Bible says now, if God be for us,
that's a belief too. Believing in God is a belief.
All right. You see, that's why the enemy take advantage of us. Sometimes we don't know in whom we believe or what we believe.
About God? The enemy did. Who told the enemy what told you about God?
It doesn't matter who told you about God. If you can, it's your responsibility. It
Hold
doesn't matter.
on, Miss
It
Rob.
doesn't matter who told you about God. It's our responsibility to read and study and know God's word for ourselves.
Yes, you're gonna read His word. He wrote the word. You don't read anything but His word.
When you say His, who are you referring to?
Who did the writing?
See, Miss Rob, that's your problem right there. Some of us don't know what we believe. We don't know in whom we believe. That is the problem right there. We need to fix that before we can go anywhere.
First of all, Mr. Robert, the first 5 books of the Bible were written by Moses. The original translation was in Hebrew and Greek. And then King James had it translated in English so English speakers could understand what the Hebrew and Greek was.
Listen, I speak broken English and I translate it into French. So it's never the translation is exactly the same.
Well, you know what? It may not be, but I know for myself their word is real because of the things that it has done in my life. So again, we can't keep blaming. We got to find some solutions. We got to quit talking about what some white folks have done to us for the last 50, 75, and 100 years. You're not going to change the way they think. So what you're going to have to do is make up in your mind, you're going to do better for yourself. As an African-American community, we have to take care of each other and put some positive things in the community that will draw the young people so that they won't continue to do the things that they are doing. This time for talking about the blame and where it started, that's useless now. This is 2023. What are we going to do to change some of this?
What solutions are we bringing to the table instead of going backwards? We know the history.